The moment everything changed for me was the moment that I finally accepted that I'm just weird. Not eccentric, not unique, just plain weird. And I was tired of altering my personality for every room that I walked into, always monitoring the temperature, making sure I wasn't too hot, too cold, too much, too passionate, too opinionated, too quiet, too loud, too everything. I was dosing out my emotions like medicine and rationing my own words. It would never work. I always felt like the last puzzle piece that just wouldn't fit into place. I always felt like the last puzzle piece that just wouldn't fit into place. So one day I gave up. I stopped trying to morph. And when I did that, everything changed. So one day I just gave up. Oh, Jesus. Okay, we're going to close that. And can I close this? That's fine. What's that? All right, let's try this again. Okay. Okay. So one day I just gave up. I stopped trying to morph. And when I did that, everything changed. Here's what I had to face on the other side of giving up. I had been living a lie, the biggest good girl lie there is. The lie that everybody knows what's best for you except for you. That's the one we're dispelling today, the lie of limitation, because that's what it does. It shrinks your desires down to be realistic. It hands your intuition to everyone with an opinion and convinces you that your own soul is the last voice that you should trust. If you've ever felt like a fish out of water, this episode is for you. Hi, I'm Annalise Carrington, and welcome to Soliloquies N Sepia. Soliloquies N Sepia is a transformational podcast for women who have been living the assigned version of their lives and are ready to find out who they actually are underneath it. In theater, a soliloquy is the moment a character speaks their truth out loud, not to an audience, not to another character, but to themselves. It is the moment of radical honesty before the decision that changes everything. That is what this podcast invites every listener to do. Each episode is a permission slip to want more, to question what you were told, to stop living in quiet desperation and start listening to the voice inside that has been trying to get your attention for years. When I finally gave up on trying to be who everyone else said I should be, amazing things started happening. I began to pay attention to me. I started noticing how I felt and what I truly wanted in life. I never realized how many desires I had pushed away because someone else said that they weren't acceptable or unattainable. I realized and identified the things that were important to me, and I decided to design my own life. The freedom I felt when I became honest with myself is unfathomable. I decided to laugh out loud when I thought something was funny. I chose to express myself fully in rooms instead of trying to shrink down to become unnoticed. And you know what? People started to like me. I mean, people were okay with me before, but I noticed that I had a magnetic pull and a natural charisma that had never been discovered until I stopped trying to be like everybody else. I made so many friends, and people were drawn to my aura. I began to connect with my intuition in a way that I had never done before. This concept can be a little tricky for some individuals because people always ask, how do you know if it's your intuition or just some random thought? I won't lie, it took me a long time for me to recognize when my intuition was speaking to me. But one of the things that I noticed was that I had to take time to be still. I had to silence the noise. I had to get by myself to really hear my own thoughts. One of the habits that I had been taught was to have worship in the morning by myself. During this time of devotion, I had time to journal, to be quiet, and prepare for the day mentally. I'm not religious at this time, but I still connect with God directly through His Word. During a particular dark period of my life, I decided that I needed to redefine my concept and relationship with God. So in my mind's eye, I sat on a bench in my backyard and imagined myself talking to Jesus. I told him that I felt that he had been very misrepresented, and I was willing to taste and see that the Lord is good. And I was tired of reading other people's thoughts and writings and opinions about who he was and how I wanted to know him personally. So I asked him if he would lead me personally and that we could have a relationship like Enoch did. My words were, "Would you please walk with me like Enoch walked with God?" Ever since then, I have relied on prayer and the Bible to guide me. It looks something like this. In the morning, after finding 10 things that I'm thankful for, I open my Bible and certain verses will stand out to me. I underline them and then physically write them down on paper. There is something very powerful that happens when I do this, the actual writing portion versus just simply reading. Then I'll get a thought or like an impression to go to another section of the Bible, another verse. I write that verse down too. This process continues for me until I have an entire message written from verse to verse. Some days it's 5 verses, some days it's 10, some days it's just 3. Then as I go along my day or later on in the week, there are interactions that reinforce the message. Some will call these synchronicities. Sometimes it'll be enough. Sometimes it'll be through a conversation I had. Sometimes it'll be through a conversation I have with someone or a sentence that I hear on a podcast. Sometimes I'll hear a sermon and the verse quoted was the same one that I had been impressed to write down earlier that week, along with the particular message that had been presented to me during my devotion. What is so amazing is that in church, we were always warned that this was not the way to study the Bible. It makes me laugh because I know God talks to me through this message. I know God talks to me through this method. I also had to learn how to get in touch with myself. I had to take time to really connect with who I was. I had to learn how to pay attention to what I was feeling because up until then, I really didn't know how I felt until an extreme emotion would take place. Paying attention to yourself includes listening to your body's signals. Like going to the bathroom, it's kind of like when you need to go to the bathroom, just go. Like, don't ignore it. Go to the bathroom. You can also do this by avoiding certain foods that don't really agree with your body. This is different from wanting to eat something just because you crave it, but listening to how your body reacts to what you're putting into it. If your body feels bad, it's trying to tell you something. The last thing that I learned was that outsourcing my intuition and the last thing that I stopped doing was outsourcing my intuition and relaying decision making to others. The last thing that I stopped doing was outsourcing my intuition and giving away my decision power to others. Here's the biggest lie. The lie that you really don't know what is good for you. That right there is something I learned the hard way. Sometimes we are looking for everybody's opinion and how to move forward. Sometimes we are looking for everybody's opinion on how to move forward, what we should do in life. But your own soul knows its calling, and you can't hear it when you are tuned in to everyone else. You can't hear it when you're tuned in to everyone else. Another lie or misquotation from the Bible says that the heart is deceitful above all things and desperately wicked. Who can know it? Yes, the Bible does say it, but I just find it so ironic how everyone knows how to quote that verse when they're telling you not to listen to yourself. I really feel like this verse is misused and misrepresented. In fact, in my own personal study of the Bible, I found that verse is sitting right below the verse that God gave me before I jumped off the cliff. That verse was Jeremiah 7 and 8. And if you saw my last episode, this is the verse where I felt that God was promising me that he would take care of me if I just trusted him. This verse says, "Blessed is the man or person that trusteth in the Lord, and whose hope the Lord is. For he shall be as a tree planted by the waters, that spreadeth out her roots by the rivers, and shall not see when heat cometh. But her leaf shall be green, and shall not be careful in the year of drought. Neither shall cease from yielding fruit." So this verse basically says, if you trust in God, he's got you. But then the verse after that, it's like, the heart is deceitful. And it's so interesting how people take that verse and they use it and they say, the heart is deceitful, so outsource your intuition to everybody else. Don't trust yourself, but trust what somebody else says. When in reality, God is speaking to you in you. Here's what I've experienced. When you get that little tingle in the back of your neck, when a certain person walks in the door and your body tenses up, that means they're not safe or you're not in a safe situation. That is your body telling you to get out of that place before you're in real danger. But we sit there and ignore it because, oh no, it's Pastor so and so, it's elder this person or that person, it's uncle who knows what, or even auntie so and so. And we ignore it and we say, no, 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 it's okay, it's okay. That's us ignoring our intuition. If there was a lie that I could counter, is that outsourcing your intuition is deadly. I have never gone wrong when I have listened to it, even when it has gone against what the outside voices were telling me. In every episode, I share books that help me elevate from the chameleon I once was to the person I am today. In every episode, I share books that help me elevate, that had helped me. In every episode, I share books that helped me to elevate from the chameleon I once was to the confident person that I am today. One of those books is Permission to Offend by Rachel Luna. This book gives a concrete pathway to connect with yourself and stop morphing to fit into your room, to the rooms that you are in. She gives you a pathway to find the person who you really are meant to be and stand 10 toes down in your truth. Another series that moved me was a women's fiction series called Black Girls Must Die Exhausted. This entire series hit me so hard because it showcases a woman named Tabitha who was chasing the career, the guy, the perfect life that is the perfect guy, the blueprint that is presented to all of us when we're young. But then as she moved through her experiences, she began to discover that maybe what she really truly wanted was something that was a little bit outside of that box she was given. One of the characters that I absolutely love in this series is an older white woman who becomes a kind of mentor to Tabitha. This woman was the person who lived her life out loud. She made mistakes, but she had no regrets. This book gave me the power to stop asking for permission to pursue my passions, permission to make space for joy and rest in my life, permission to follow my intuition. If I had to write a letter to my younger self, it would go something like this. Dear younger me, I see you. Yes, you. The one who is moving, shifting, morphing to fit into spaces that weren't meant for you. The one who is moving, shifting, and morphing to fit into spaces that weren't meant for you. Stop. Stop cutting off pieces of yourself so that you can squeeze into that group of friends. Stop contracting your desires, your vision, so that it can be considered realistic. God gave you that personality, the one that feels so deeply, the one that imagines more, the one that has big dreams. You were created for a purpose, so lean into it. Stop trying to squeeze yourself into that empty space in the puzzle. Trust me, there is a larger table with a bigger puzzle that has the space that you were created to slide into effortlessly. Trust yourself. Listen to your intuition. It will never lead you astray. Always, Annalise.